Find an image and unpack it. Now that you have your list of features and activities you want to see in your backyard garden, it's time to select one item on that list and start looking for some inspiration. If you have some images already available, that's great, but if not, jump onto Google and just type in your activity name along with garden ideas or garden styles or some derivative of that. If you go over to Google Images, you will see a great wall of images appear, and you can begin your search just scrolling through until something catches your eye. If you want to find more, check out Pinterest, Facebook, or even just a general Google search for blogs or websites. The image you choose doesn't have to be exactly what you want. That's the point of this idea generator, is to find things that interest you, unpack what you like, and turn them into flexible, usable points. So your image may only have one interesting thing in it, and you ignore the rest. Or you may like the whole combination of things within the image. Either way, this step helps you separate the items and define more clearly what you like. Once you find an image that you like, save it or print it off, along with the 2 cheat sheets. Before diving into it, a quick note: you don't have to fill out the whole sheet. They are merely there to help you define one or more aspects of the image you like. You may only like 2 items, and if that's the case, you only need to fill 2 rows. Step 2. Elements. Elements refers to any physical component within the image. On the left of the sheet you will see a list of items, which we'll walk through now. Hardscaping is built structures within the landscape that are usually the first areas to be constructed. Here we are referring to the surfaces you may have: deck, paving areas, paths, or driveways. Walls. It's pretty self-explanatory. Retaining walls that hold back soil, general fences, gates or screens between areas, as well as other things like green walls that use water and drainage systems for plants. Plants and trees. It covers basically all floral elements: grasses, shrubs, hedges, borders, or lawn. Water can cover pools, spas, fountains, any feature that utilizes water really. Lights can be varied and light up large areas, or even just little hanging feature lights. Art refers to sculptural elements, generally something that is meant to be a focal point. Furniture, the movable items that are placed within the space, such as tables, chairs, and benches. Play areas, generic for any area dedicated to a specific activity. Other covers anything that isn't listed above. Keep in mind some things you see in the image will apply to multiple rows. A retaining wall with a broad bench seat on top covers walls and furniture to a degree, so don't stress too much about getting it exactly right, just so long as you get a better understanding of what it is that interests you. You will see along the top of the table we have 5 categories. They are the design elements of the different components. The choice is made in regards to how the element will be physically constructed. Let's have a look at each category and how it may relate to the components in your image. Material. Do you like the material of this component, or the material palette of the space? Color. Do you like the color or color combination of the component, or the color palette across the image? Shape. Is it straight lines or natural curves that you like? Maybe the bold feature plant is a great shape. Or you love the soft, subtle edges. Size. The size of a part of the element. Or maybe the size of the element itself. Finish. Basically the way the product is to touch. Stone can be sawn, smooth, or rough. Does the element have a really interesting finish that you can see and would like to replicate? As you unpack your image, use the left column to locate the component that interests you, and then write a short description about why you like it beneath the corresponding category. You won't necessarily like every category for a component, so just write in the ones you do. As an example, let's go through an image together. I found it typing back garden ideas into Google and jumping to the Images tab at the top of the page. It caught my eye as I scanned down, so I saved it to a garden ideas folder. Let's look at the elements that caught my eye and write them down in the table, just to help me define what it is I like about the image. The big thing that caught my eye was the grass and plant wall with that grid of different colours and textures. Looking at that cheat sheet, I immediately go to walls on the left and look at each category along the top of the table. For material, I really like the use of grass or plants, whichever one it is. It's really interesting and quite unique to look at. Colour. The slight changes in greens across the wall are very nice, more interesting to me than if it was all one colour. Shape. Here I consider the squares. I love the simplicity and ease of use that squares provide in this patchwork pattern. Size. The size of the squares is pretty good as well. Not too many squares or too few. It creates the right number to allow for good variation with the plants and colours. Finish. I really love the different textures it creates. It's subtle but still visible and invites you to touch it. Looking over other elements in the image, they don't really appeal to me. I'm not a huge fan of the dry stone wall, mainly due to the colour. I'd prefer it darker and more rustic. The water feature with straight pipes is another element I'm not a big fan of. It's a bit boring and bland, although it would create a nice sound. Overall, I feel this garden mixes some styles a little inconsistently. The squares on the grass wall seem a touch more modern to me with the straight lines. The wall is not modern, but the water feature is, and it doesn't really mesh well for me. Add in the nice mixed garden beds, which are more of a cottage garden style, and then the clean plain concrete and lawn, and it seems like it's trying to combine old and new, but it hasn't used a consistent colour or material palette to do so. Having outlined my thoughts, if I wanted to, I could take more notes in the table about what I don't like. This can act as warnings about what to avoid, but I find it easier to stick with what you like, which in this case is just the wall for me. Just to point out, this is my opinion of the image. You are free to have a completely different idea of what is good and bad in this image. I've just outlined what I like and why, and now we can get the second cheat sheet and look at some of the design aspects I like or dislike. Step 2. Design. The second cheat sheet looks at the design aspects of the image. Looking over the categories at the top, we have function. What is the function of the element? Does it provide shade, safety, seating, or help separate space? What does this element do? Layout. Layout refers to the position of all the different areas or activities within the image. How are the rooms in the garden created, and how do they feel? Are they open or intimate? Combination. Basically, how does everything work together? Do the materials and colours work in harmony? Or are they jarring or look out of place? Do the size and shape of the elements in the image please the eye? Contrast. Do the materials, colours, sizes or finishes provide an interesting contrast? It can be contrast between material finishes, or the material choices for different elements, or maybe between the garden and the house, or it's juxtaposed with the local climate. Interest. Is there anything else within the image not covered above that interests you? So that's an overview of the design components. Let's go through my image and unpack it. Function. For me, the function of the wall is as a visual feature. You can't really interact with it other than by touch. It could serve to separate space, block or reduce sound, or simply run along a boundary, but to me it is mostly visual. Layout. As I said in function, it works well to separate a space and act as a big barrier visually and for sound. Useful for creating quiet or intimate areas. Combination. The combination of different colours and textures with the grass squares is a really nice design aspect. Contrast. Again with the squares, I really like the slight contrast between them. It's much more interesting than a plain wall, even a grass wall or hedge. There isn't much else I could think of for interest, so I'll just leave it blank. That's a really basic outline of the design aspects I like. As you can see, they are fairly similar given I'm only focusing on one element in the image. If I had a few more things I liked, I'd add some more information to this page. So now you can work through your image using these cheat sheets, writing down what you like under the right category. Focus on what you do like, and remember, you don't have to write in every box. Just get it down to help you define what you like. Once you've done that, it's time to move on to the next step.